Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Northwest Access TV. It's Wednesday, April 3rd, which is to say it's time for another For the Record St. Albans Today show. Happy to have representatives from St. Albans City and St. Albans Town. Mr. Martin Manahan jumping in. Marty wears a number of hats these days, Director of Business Development and Operations and the city's Public Works Director. Marty, always good to see you.
Thank
and
you,
the
Richard.
former mayor, of course.
Glad to be here.
And certainly very happy to see Brendan Deso, the new chair of the St. Albans Town Select Board. And Brendan, I guess your first appearance out at our nice new studio, huh?
I'm excited to be here. I gotta say, it's a beautiful building and it's a great community asset.
Great, thanks. Good to have you. In fact, let's start with yourself. I talked to you on the phone. Have you nailed down? You've obviously close to the youngest select board chair in the state. Is that nailed downable or not?
I haven't looked into it. I don't know where we would start.
Yeah.
I thought about reaching out to UVM Rural Studies to see if there's any type of a project that's been done in the past that might have that information already compiled. But
And how old are you, for the record?
I turn 22 tomorrow.
Really? Yeah, we're almost getting on your birthday.
Right.
Is that right? 22 tomorrow.
Right.
Wow. Well, obviously, I can't imagine there are too many select board members younger than that, but anyway. And you've been on the board for a while, of course,
2
just
years.
re-elected.
Got elected at 19. That was a really neat thing. Kind of wondered, how do I jump that bar age-wise, and then we figured out how to do it. No, I'm really thankful for the board. That election as chair was unanimous, and that was a really great experience. And we're off and running the first 2 weeks. We've got that DPW relocation project and all the different contracts with contractors and all of those different things that we were covering. And we've had 2 meetings now, and everything's gone really well. Jessica Frost is blending in.
Newly elected board member who succeeded Bill Nyan. Yep.
She is an excellent addition.
And a female. Nice to have a female, huh?
I tell you, we've worked pretty hard to start to stack our DRB, our Planning Commission, and our Select Board, and get more women members. We have 2 women now that are on the DRB. We have 1 woman on the Planning Commission, and now we have a woman Select Board member. I think it's really important that women are represented at the local level.
That's great. I think Jessica's the 4th Select Board member in the town. Bunny Beard, Carol Winchester, and Kathy Middlemiss, I think. Jessica's number 4. And again, Bruce Cheeseman remains vice chair of the board.
He does, and it's Bruce, just called me a little while ago when I was in a meeting. He and I talk regularly. We collaborate as often as possible, keep each other on the same page. That's a noticeable difference, I think, between, the last board, at least in the last couple of months that we were together, and this new board, is that the lines of communication are much more open. And it's paying off, Even if we disagree with each other, that's fine. But the fact that we're at least communicating that has been really helpful all the way around.
Marty, of course, is no stranger to this show, but give us a little background. Tell us about yourself. Again, 22, Select Board Chairman in St. Albans Town.
Well,
just give us a little background info on yourself.
So I graduated from BFA in 2015. I'm a 4th straight generation town resident. Grandfather grew up on the Dunsmore Road. I'm a 6th generation St. Albans resident. I actually spent part of my childhood in the city, kindergarten through 3rd grade in the city school system. So I have an appreciation for both communities. Currently, professionally, I'm a licensed real estate agent. My grandfather and I own and operate D&H Housing and Mini Storage in Highgate. So we're site developers and manufactured housing dealers, and we have a mini storage operation, and I general manage all of that. So
sounds like you're managing to keep pretty busy, huh?
Try to keep myself out of trouble, but.
Marty, always good to see you out here. I guess since we last saw you, I think when we last saw you, you were interim Public Works Director in addition to your other jobs, and now the permanent Public Works Director?
Yeah, I think for the foreseeable future, I will maintain that title.
Yeah, was there a key hiring with the PW department?
We've hired an individual that has recently retired from the City of Burlington Public Works. And very excited. He'll bring a tremendous amount of experience and new ideas and structure and policies and stuff to the organization.
And his position being?
He'll be deputy director.
Deputy director?
Yeah.
Is this person already working?
No, he will start at the end of the month. The 29th is when he is due to come on.
You won't be unhappy to have him on board, I
I
suspect?
won't. He'll do, like I said, an excellent job. We've got a great crew. We've got a terrific superintendent. We are very fortunate with everything that happened. Walter Kane is our superintendent. Has a really good demeanor, works well with others. He's a true leader. He is the first one, down in a hole on a water leak, and he's got three probably key guys that go out as a team with him on those. Yesterday, they repaired a sewer leak up on High Street. That was a pretty difficult repair. It was probably over 100-year-old line that dropped down about 7 feet within about a 5-foot span and weaved in between two water lines.
It was like a real fun job.
Right, and those guys did it, and at the end of the day, at 3:30, they got a phone call that there was another incident down on Lower Newton. They went down, and it was an elderly lady whose cellar had flooded, and as it turns out, we pumped it out for her. But as it turns out, her sump pump had malfunctioned.
Oh, really?
We got that running for her, so she should be all set. And they were there till 7 o'clock last night. But yeah, with this new hire, he'll be an excellent addition, and I think will make our team even stronger. So
Will you be spending less time on the PW front when this person takes
probably
over?
he will do more of the day-to-day
Yeah.
operations. Typically, my day now consists of going in around 7:30 to meet with the crew. We talk about what we have for the day, projects and stuff, and then check up on them throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, we'll regroup and kind of recap what's happened, and then keep going from there. And then I'm usually there till 4:30 or so, 5 o'clock, dealing with the operations side and trying to keep the business development piece of it going as well. So it'll be a good addition. I think it's been a long winter.
Yeah, I bet. How'd you fare? Again, it was a real win. In fact, just driving from St. Albans to Enosburg today, right in the middle of that squall, that was pretty good squall, but a real winter. I know Burlington's up to about 102 inches of snow, about 20% above average. I assume St. Albans is probably
we are
in
too.
that ballpark.
I think the last I think we were like right around 30% above average. We did well. Like I said, we have a young crew and stuff, and there were some bumps in the road, no pun intended, but they did a great job. They dealt with water leaks, and we operate under the 24-hour rule down in downtown, that after the last snowflake drops, within 24 hours, we typically had all the snow removed from downtown.
Well,
So
no, is that right? Is that a new 24-hour rule? Is that
well, it's one that we've tried to operate under this year, and in previous years, Alan did a great job doing it, and that was the pattern that we took on. So this last storm, those guys worked from our main crew went in at 7 o'clock in the morning on Thursday and worked through till 2 o'clock Friday morning, and then went back that night and removed snow, took out almost 100 loads of snow between Lake, Kingman, and Main Street. So
Where does that snow go?
So we haul it down to the Fonda site,
Okay.
and dump it there. And we have on salt. It was interesting listening to the states. Obviously, the state has the highways and everything, but we finished the season with using a little over 700 tons of salt.
Really?
And we had budgeted for about 750 tons. So we were in good shape there. We used sand occasionally, but the state, frowns on you using sand and stuff. So
sand's a thing. The state doesn't like sand.
Yeah, it fills up your catch basins, and we'll go out now. That'll be the next couple of weeks. We'll do street sweeping and catch basin cleaning and stuff. But yeah, eventually it ends up in the lake, and so if we can keep it off the roads as much as we can, we certainly try. So
Brendan, speaking of public works, certainly getting a lot of attention in the town, obviously with the decisive voter approval of the move from the Bay to town-owned land on Brigham Road. So how's that moving along in the wake of voter approval about a month ago?
So it's awesome. I'm really excited. We're moving along at a pretty good clip now. We are moving through permitting at the state level. We have a couple permits in hand now. We actually applied for the town's building permit now. It had passed through the DRB, but we hadn't applied for a building permit until after the project had passed. So now we're to the point where we're finalizing contracts with Connor Contracting. We are making deposits on the metal building to the supplier. We're moving along, and we're starting to see some progress. We're looking at, for a ground break potential, as of our Tuesday meeting, we would say no later than sometime in the middle of June.
Yeah.
We would like to shoot for sooner, but it's all hanging on some state construction permits with the fire marshal, according to our design team.
Was there an issue with the salt shed? Was there any money or budgeting issue with the salt shed?
So, yeah, there was at first, and our first meeting was taken up with a phone conversation with our project manager, Matt Young from Ascent Consulting. He budgeted $600,000 for construction, which we thought was ample, being a salt shed with 2 lean-tos. Then $87,000 for soft costs, which is kind of exorbitant on a usual $600,000 job, but the town did receive a $376,000 V-Trans grant to be used on the relocating the salt project, the salt shed project. So we've got that under control now. Matt pumped out an estimate after the ballots had been ordered for about $970,000 that more or less reflected some actual street verified numbers that he had worked with local contractors to obtain. So we looked at that as we were about $283,000 behind the mark without putting a shovel in the ground. But we then factored in the fact that between the garage relocation project and the salt shed relocation project, we had about $240,000 worth of contingencies, which is never good if you're talking about your contingencies before you even put a shovel in the ground, right, Marty? But so we felt that we were about $40,000 short. We made a few changes to the design of the building, the salt shed building, such as instead of doing shed roofs off the side walls of the salt shed for lean-tos, we've raised them up and then lowered the header for the trusses a little bit. And we're going to do a scissor truss. And instead of doing a 6-inch concrete slab underneath both lean-tos, we've reverted back to asphalt. And between those two changes, we estimate that now we're back in the range of having about $100,000 of our contingencies left. So we feel pretty comfortable that if everything was built the way it was budgeted for right now, we'd actually come in under budget for what the voters had approved. And there's still some value engineering going on with our contractors and our project managers and our design team. We expect that $100,000 mark could get bigger, but we haven't put a shovel in the ground. So.
And again, we're talking no property tax money from townspeople, correct? You had $3 to $4 million in your infrastructure fund from the local option sales tax?
We receive about $800,000 a year from that revenue line. And when the voters approved us collecting that as part of a charter change, it was expected that they would approve all infrastructure projects that money would be earmarked for.
Did you support that at the time? I'm
I
not sure you probably weren't voting.
Well, I was a
Or maybe you
sophomore, junior in high school. I did pay attention, and I thought,
Good for you.
it's a revenue that comes from largely outside the community, especially with our Walmart and our shopping centers.
Yeah.
So we're pretty fortunate. We're in a really good spot financially, but if you look at all of our deferred maintenance on our municipal buildings, we're actually a little bit behind where we'd like to be. So the select board and the planning commission have a joint meeting coming up, I think for April 29th at Town Hall, I think around 5:30. And we're gonna work together to set priorities for this coming year to give our staff and the planning commission clear directives. And I really think that a town hall, either rehabilitation or relocation project will be either number 1 or number 2. So we need
Big issue. So that issue will get a lot of attention this year.
Yeah, we've had a few different ideas come up. We had an infrastructure committee that we founded back in 2017 that largely focused on a town hall relocation project before the board changed a little bit in 2018 with Stan Dukas coming back. The board at that time decided to shift the infrastructure committee's focus from a town hall to a DPW relocation project. I would like to see that this precedent that we've set of naming something a number 1 priority and then getting it accomplished and past voters like we did with the DPW project last year rings true with a town hall, even if it bleeds into 2020.
So you'd like to see that as kind of your biggest issue this year to work on?
Right, and I think we should handle it at
Big
the...
issue.
Yeah, I mean, you talk with the town clerk, and she says that we've got 3 to 5 years left in our vault before we need major configurations for our land records. That's a big issue.
Are you open-minded about that? I know I've heard some rough costs suggesting that if you renovated at the current site, you'd spend about as much as you would on a new building. But is it conceivable to you that working with the current site might be the way to go?
Well, there's been talks since I was, knee-high to a grasshopper that we would buy the old bowling alley next door, the blue structure, tear it down, new parking, elevator shaft inside the building to get in compliance with ADA. There was a study, or a feasibility study that was done at some point. That's something that the towns love to do for the last at least 10 years that I know of, is study.
Yeah.
But I read that, and it looked like it would come in somewhere around the $2 million mark several years ago. So I would expect, probably 3 to 3.5, given the steady rise of building materials and labor costs. But I don't know. We haven't approached any landowner, adjoining property owners about anything. The infrastructure committee in 2017 and into 2018 had picked a property. Sam Smith and his family out of the Ingleside Equity Group had offered to donate 5 acres scot-free to the town with a few set conditions that, permits will be in hand by such and such a date. You will begin construction by such and such a date.
And this is
the
a
land
site
reverts
near
back.
104 and 36 intersection?
Yeah, so it's at the top of Upper Weldon. That's where the access would come in, and then it would sit. There's a knoll through a cornfield, and there's actually, I think, either a 50 or 100-foot right-of-way for Green Mountain Power that would have to be relocated to make that site.
And again, have you got an option on that site at this point?
So the select board last year, I think in the early summer, late spring, had talked about putting down literally a 1% deposit because the infrastructure committee decided that 5 acres probably wasn't enough for the future.
Really?
And they, asked our staff to approach our benefactors, the Smith family, and ask what they would charge for an additional 5 acres on top of the free land. And the cost was $250,000, so $50,000 per acre for everything over 5, which I thought at the time, looking at comparables in the market, I thought that was pretty fair. So the talk was $250,000 for 10 acres. There's no infrastructure on site. It is at the road. There's that relocating the power line. That was a hurdle. Nothing that wasn't doable.
Yeah.
So we actually had talked about taking some road frontage on 36 and going around those office buildings. It hadn't materialized right when they were getting to the point where a site plan looked like it might be in order. That's when we kind of shift gears. From the outside looking in, I could be a little off, but I think we could get back to that at some point if that's what the board decided to do. I'm not opposed to it.
Anyway, that's an issue that'll get plenty of attention as the year plays out.
Right, and so will, we told voters, if you pass this relocation project, we're going to have to decide what to do with the current site.
Sure, another, big issue.
I actually had lunch with the town manager today at Bayside, and Chuck Lowe was there with the Marina. And, I asked Chuck, I said, what would you ideally, owning that marina, like to see? Not to support you solely, but he lives in the Bay, he owns a restaurant. And we floated around the idea of a state-owned boat launch. If you drive, it's a little shallow there, so we don't know exactly how we do it. Chuck was pretty adamant that the state had done some dredging before to fit boat launches in. You look at by West Shore Road on Hathaway Point, that state-owned boat launch, even in the middle of the week.
Pretty busy place.
You can't drive by it. So I think there's an immediate need there that we could address. But look to see that discussion start probably sometime in June.
That's right. Chuck, I know they got off to, I guess, probably a little slower start than they thought last summer or had hoping for a better summer. Did they fare okay last summer? Of course, it was their first summer with the marina.
So in talking with Chuck today, he said, I would have bet the farm that we would have filled up the first year because of all the interest we received as we were going through permitting.
Certainly didn't happen.
But, there are people that might live in the area, but they have slips in Mallett's Bay or out in the islands, and they don't want to give them up. I would say partially because they want maybe a friend to go and tell them that this new marina is fine and dandy first. or they have friends, so many groups of friends and their kids play together that they don't want to relocate. But Chuck's seeing, more slips rented this year. He's still confident in the success of his project, and we hope that it fills up.
Marty, putting on your Director of Business Development hat, any major news to report on that front? How's the city faring these days? Downtown?
Yeah, it's doing well. A couple businesses pulled out. Chasworth Farm pulled out. They were next to 84 Main, and they're doing a studio up at their farm in Georgia and doing more online presence. So, but we've got a couple of others that have expressed interest. We're working on a couple of other businesses. 10 Lake Street is going through facade improvements now. They had to change midstream because of some structural issues. So that should be done here in the next few weeks. And they've got one tenant moving in there that'll fill one of those spaces. And then obviously the Congress and Main project is our big one that's on tap now. So
And how is that? Have we got movement
we're
there?
hoping to start demo in May, mid-May, towards the end of May. Maiden Lane.
And this is demo of the Maiden Lane apartment building?
Actually, the first part of the demo will be the Main Street buildings.
Okay.
And then the 10 Congress, the green building on Congress.
Okay.
And then we have got probably 4 or 5 tenants left in Maiden Lane.
So not too many, most have gotten out
have
of
been
there.
relocated, yeah. And the ones that are left in there have, like 2 looked at apartments today, so we expect them to that building to be vacant by May 1st.
Really? Oh.
And then the question will be, we've got to do some remediation, some asbestos and lead and stuff like that, but then that will be probably right behind the demos on Main Street to come down. So.
Yeah. So how many new buildings are going in there?
So there'll be 1 new building on the Main Street front, and then 2 on Maiden Lane.
Okay.
2 housing
And
units.
the Main Street building where CCV will be moving to.
Right.
Freeing up their space for the city police department.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also some other space available.
So there'll be
in the
retail
building.
space on the bottom floor, and it's 4,000 square feet. So whether it's broken up into 2,000, 2,000s, or 4 1,000s, or a single 4 is yet to be determined. And then hoping to get the hospital on the 3rd floor. So.
Oh yeah. Speaking of such thing, the old Owl Club site and Connor Contract in the new building they put up, 5 years ago. Am I even short?
Probably,
5
yeah.
plus. How have they done with that building? Have they?
So
is
the
that not
top
filled
floor
up?
is occupied.
Yeah.
AM Peisch is on one side, and then there's a medical practice on the other side, on the south side. And the bottom floor has not been rented. I know they've had some interest in that and have shown some. I think they've turned a couple potential tenants away. It wasn't a right mix for what they were looking for. So, but I understand that they're close. They may be close to renting that space as well. So.
Yeah. Downtown, again, things obviously, there's always changes. You feel downtown's doing pretty well these days?
Yeah, I think so. We had a merchants meeting today, and the general consensus was everybody was, it was a long winter, but everybody came out of it fairly well. The Hampton Inn is doing well.
Yeah.
Speaking with Marine Brown, who manages that, they are, booked this weekend. They're booked for Maple Festival weekend, so they've done well. So, and I think again, it's just more. Keep plugging away. I think, La Casa Burrito is looking to expand their menu and stuff and make some changes. 84 Main is interested in expanding their restaurant. We've got another restaurant that's expressed in Winooski that's expressed interest in coming up. We've had some
In fact, what
preliminary
about Milton? Now that you
conversations.
mention that, it makes me think a restaurant bar in Milton, the Saloon. I'm sure it seems like I read in the Milton Independent that the owner of that place, which I think is closed, is going to be a highway project there. That she's moving into the old wooden nickel.
Yes, I think she purchased the property.
Purchased the property.
And is looking to put the restaurant in a portion of it and then retail space as well. So
We had we actually just approved a liquor license.
Of course, that's the town.
Right.
of course.
So the name on the liquor license was Bronson's Landing.
Okay, yeah, it's Ms. Bronson. So that's
We're really excited to see that space occupied. It was doing pretty well with John and Melissa Montang with the wooden nickel. John actually is one of our newest members of our Department of Public Works.
Oh, really?
A really hard worker. Great reviews from our DPW director, Alan Mashtair. So small world. But we've got John and another new hire, and we're about to make another one if he hasn't started already. So we were able to come out of that. I actually spent 4 hours with Alan when we got that storm a couple Fridays ago. That late night storm.
Heavy wet snow.
Yeah, I had my fiance, the wife-to-be, drop me off right at the garage. I got in with Alan at around 8 o'clock. He dropped me off at my house at midnight.
Yeah.
But it was really refreshing to see our entire crew in their natural habitat. We had a truck go down, they fixed it. We had heavy wet snow. Wow, those trucks work so hard. But it's really neat to see our crew gelling. We came out of that salary, I'll call it a fiasco, and they're stronger because of it from the outside looking in. We're excited to make that new addition, and we're ready to roll into the summer.
I should note for folks, it's a live show. If you're watching us live anyway, I'd love to get phone calls. Our number 528-5315, 528-5315. Any questions or comments about any St. Albans town issues? Again, obviously, boy, not the best times for retail, but again, downtown seems to be hanging in.
Amazon's a
reasonably
big
well.
company.
Yeah.
It's a challenge for a lot of them. And like I said before, it's typically a family-run situation, and it's a high burnout and high turnover and stuff. So, but yeah, for the most part, I think we're doing well.
So, Brendan, are you going to be the select board chair with the city and town's long-standing wastewater problem? You're going to finally get that resolved under your chairmanship, I trust? Is that a goal?
It is resolved.
Yeah, I mean, we had some serious points that we were looking
I
to
guess there's no
litigate.
litigation. Of course, the city came out on top in the
Well,
latest round of litigation. So at this moment,
we-
is that the case? No pending litigation, or
I'll make this point. We had several points, I think it was in the teens, that we were attempting to litigate. We had actually filed for summary judgment, I think was my recollection. The city in court questioned the town's standing. Could the town prove actual harm? And Judge Greg Rainville ruled in the city's favor that the town could not prove harm, and the case was dismissed. The town at the time had the opportunity to appeal. We decided against.
did not do so?
And my individual position is we have material disagreements that were not litigated, but we're no longer litigating. And I'm trying very hard to forge a really nice relationship with the mayor. Marty and I have spoken pretty regularly for the last couple of months. We're attempting now to
Maybe some talk about some joint meetings at some point.
I'd like to shoot for May, June at the latest to have a joint city council select board meeting, and
That hasn't happened for a while. I know it's happened before, but
I was going to say, when I was mayor,
Did you have
we
any-
had them.
did
Yeah,
you?
we had both in the city and town.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to think, I think it might have been when Mitch was chair.
yeah.
And
Certainly
Mitch and I
sounds
had
like
a good
reasonable
relationship.
thing to
and-
do.
Yeah,
well,
Yeah.
Tim,
yeah, no question.
But it's been a while.
the mayor had a good point when we gave that interview to the Messenger together. It doesn't make sense to do very much in isolation. We cross each other's borders every day. The only people that seem to understand the difference between St. Albans City and St. Albans Town are us. There's talk about collaboration on small things, and I hope it turns into something like a potential renegotiation on water and sewer on amicable terms instead of this animosity that's gone back and forth for.
And for the record, as we talked about, city and town do pretty well on a number of fronts.
We do.
We talk public works. Sounds like the two public works departments are very good helping each other out when need be. So
And that
it's not like
goes-
the city and town are at loggerheads on everything, but the water sewer issue, the water
We collaborate.
wastewater issue kind of jumps out.
We collaborate more than most municipalities
Mm-hmm.
that neighbor each other, and it's overshadowed on a very regular basis by the one material issue that we disagree on.
Good way to
So-
put it.
I would say, when it comes to public works, they work seamlessly together. And we have a lot of support as well, like from Swanton Town, Swanton Village.
Good.
We had that break yesterday. We ended up borrowing parts from Swanton.
Really?
And those guys, and we've lent them parts and vice versa and everything. And
I
so
would guess Reg
it's-
Bellavo, the Swanton Village manager, is I would think a very easy person to deal with, I would
Right,
think.
and what goes around comes around. I mean, you may be in that situation one day, and then, a month later, they're in it. So it behooves everybody to work together, and they do. They've done it long before I ever came along. So
Just in February, we had 2 trucks go down, couldn't get parts for whatever reason, and Marty and the city DPW lended us a 7-ton truck, and we were able to keep up with our plow routes. Marty's had brakes before, and we've lent him some manpower.
and that's the thing. If we had a truck going out, I know they would have done the same thing for us. So.
Heartbeat.
Yeah. No,
It,
there's some
recreation,
funds.
police,
Yeah.
fire, they all, behind the scenes, everybody really pulls together, so.
It seems I'm the only person who ever asks anybody about a city and town fire department merger again. I'm the only person. Is that just an issue that gets no attention these days? Brendan, have you given that issue any attention, or
Well,
does it
I've-
need no attention?
They were close, I think, a couple years ago.
There was certainly
some
serious, sounded like serious talk about it. It was
There-
kind of in its early stages, and then
right at the point that it got ready to look at the financial picture of what a merger would look like and the cost benefit, it seemed like there was a real political swing. And I know that our chief and the city's staff put in a lot of time into formulating what a merged department would look like, who would run it, how it would get funded, what equipment it would have. And, I feel for Chief Cross for all the time he put in, and, it was kind of for naught. But we cooperate. It seems like
that said,
almost
it
every
sounds
call.
like the two departments do work well together.
Our-
Yeah, again, if there's a fire, it's never where it is. They
assistant
all
chiefs
show
are,
up.
our number 2, our assistant chief on our department is the same guy that's the number 2 to Chief Taylor in your department, and Matt Mulheron.
Right, right.
We've
And I think those guys, and I think Chief Cross touched on it the other night. I was watching the town meeting and talked about a volunteer department is a tough department to keep the interest. You get the volunteers as they're young, but then they have families and they have other priorities and other commitments, and to keep them dedicated to that. For Chief Cross, I think he does a tremendous job keeping those guys in the department that he runs is probably one of the best in the state of Vermont. You look at the equipment and everything.
And staffing has
And-
been able, there are a number. I mean, you see those stories all the time about
Right.
departments that are just barely hanging in there. It's just lack
And
of
they don't do that
volunteers.
without a strong leader, and I think a lot of our guys, they cross over between the city and the town and everything, but when they're on a call, it's, they're all there, so.
So staffing, town fire department doing okay on the staffing front, Brendan, as far as you know?
I think we were half a dozen short of our target
Really?
volunteer number, but there are two folks coming out with I think Chief Cross calls it a level 1 certification. See, I'm kind of illiterate with the fire licensure. And,
Yeah, I think that's what he had mentioned was the course they were taking was a 50-hour course or
something like that. But we're a volunteer department that does not allow for anybody other than a level 1. I think it's a level 1. Correct me. I apologize to Chief Cross if I'm wrong, but we expect certification out of every volunteer. There are other departments, according to Chief Cross, that do not. You don't to drive a trucker. I think to even hold the hose, you might not need that certification.
Yeah.
But we've got a really excellent group of volunteers. I mean, every time I've ever had a run-in with them and been serviced, and we hear it all the time, they're just so professional. They're attentive to your needs. They collaborate really well with the city. They're really great people. We're lucky to have them. They save us a lot of money, even though we spend a lot of money on equipment. People talked about how the voters just approved a $796,000 ladder truck, which I think we just signed the contract to order today. Came in at $791,000 with some extra equipment that we were not expecting. So we're coming in under budget with some extra perks, but we tend to be a community that keeps our volunteers in top-notch equipment because they deserve it and they expect it, and they return the favor by being attentive. And it's worth noting that at any given time, you could probably eat a steak dinner off the floor of the fire station. They are the cleanest fire department, probably. I love to brag about it. They're great people. They work really hard to keep our equipment in excellent shape. It looks like an operating room in there.
Marty, City PD, how are you faring with staffing with city police department?
I think pretty well. We've got a couple going to the academy, from what I understand. We lost some, obviously, with the election of
Got a new sheriff. of
Sheriff
course.
Langevin, yeah. And I believe Paul Talley transferred over to that department. Paul was a long-serving officer in our department, did a great job. Roger did a great job, but it just, you certainly can't blame somebody for trying to get ahead in life. And so those guys will do well there. And there was another one that was on the brink of coming into our department, but decided to go to the sheriff's department too. So, which again, he was a part-time officer for us, but I think hired on full-time with Roger. So, but all in all, I think we're in good shape. I know they just hired a couple new dispatchers as well. So, yeah, at this point, we're keep forging ahead.
Again, it doesn't seem like there were a ton of young people looking to get into police work these days.
You know, and I can't say as I blame them with you see what's going on in the world today. That I mean, the other night there was an armed robbery up at the Jolly store that, you know, there's been a lot of robberies around and stuff that indicate they have a weapon, and it hasn't been shown, but that one there was clear that the, so it's scary. And these guys, we talked about it at a meeting we had last week, Gary and I were talking about it, you know, when they responded to the call up on Diamond Street where the guy shot through the door. There, but for the grace of God, that bullet missed one of our officers by inches. And had it hit him, it would have hit him in the head and probably killed him. So when you go knock on a door on a residential street in St. Albans, you're not expecting to get shot at through the door, you know. So we've got some great officers. They do a tremendous job, and it's hard work. And you know, it's frustrating because they make the arrest and they do the investigation and everything, and they bring them to court, and they seem to get released pretty quickly after that. And I can't, that would be the most frustrating part for me as an officer, is, you know, the next day going out and seeing the guy walk down the street and kind of flaunting it in your face. And and these guys are professionals. They just keep doing their job and getting it done. But
you see that on social media. They put out a press release with a mugshot every time, you know, a pretty noticeable crime is committed and they make an arrest. And that's great. I mean, that seems to drive so much traffic to their page, and people are alert and they know what's going on. But you see in the comment section, the public, oh, they'll probably let him out again in a day or two, or he'll get a slap on the wrist. So I've noticed that in all of the chief's press releases, and then Ben Kuchar too occasionally does one, they have a disclaimer now.
Right.
You know, we play no part. Contact the
That's
district
right.
attorney's office.
Yeah, I don't blame them for throwing that in.
Right.
But they do excellent work. I mean, I took a ride along, I think it was 2 months ago, with the street crimes unit, and we took a ride in the middle of a Saturday just to show some areas that provide some trouble for them in the town and city. And you know, I was surprised in a few locations, and you know, they were pretty forthcoming as much as they could be with as much information as they could share without violating any confidentialities. But they are one of the hardest working departments statistically in the entire state. Right now, they're filling some roles with overtime. You know, we have a lot of guys in the department that are working, 50, 60-hour work weeks on a regular basis. So,
And then when they got to go to court, you know, it's above and beyond what their normal hours are. I think 2 out of the top 5 arrest officers are located in our department for the most arrests in the state of Vermont. Yeah, so they job security.
It's easy to flash back when you were mayor, when the city, I guess for a while, had highest per capita crime rate in the state. And I give you and other folks a lot of credit. I mean, I suspect some you know, officials in some cities would have just, the last thing they would have wanted would have been publicity on that. But you really kind of dealt with that pretty squarely. Senator Leahy, I think, came to town for a
First judicial field
hearing.
that they had ever held was held in St. Albans.
Wow. Do you feel, in the way that was some years ago, obviously, I mean, do you feel the city's a safer place these days, given the fact there's still obviously crimes that happen? You just mentioned one of them, but have you got any
I think it is.
feel for that?
I think it is. I think had we not made the changes that we made, it would be a lot worse than it is right now. We are the only department in the county that is staffed 24/7.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that was happening in the city and the town is now pushed out, I think, into other areas of the community or county. It's interesting with the field hearing that was held. I know, you know, we were ahead of the curve on the opiate addiction issue, and there was recommendations at that field hearing that these pharmaceutical companies that are producing this drug be required to set aside funds that communities could tap into to use to try to combat it. And that was probably, I finished my mayoral in 2012. That was probably 2010. So 9 years later, they are now going after pharmaceutical companies to try to combat this disease. But
You look at what we're doing at the local level and funding the street crimes unit.
Right.
For us, that's a six-figure commitment above and beyond our contract.
Yeah,
And it's
significant.
it funds a 2 to 3 officer operation that has seen some of the best arrest rates and some of the most of the cases taken up by the federal courts above and beyond what we were doing. They're doing an excellent job.
And you see other communities now are mirroring that. I know Barry, our officers went down there and worked with a local, Tim Bombardier, who used to live in St. Albans, is now the chief down there. Worked with him, and there's other communities that have reached out to the chief to...
We have a police advisory board that formed, probably out of some difficult situations, but it's still active. We have good members. Al Vogel, Admiral Warren Ham. We just added a new member last night. I know Carrie sits on it, and a couple others. But we're looking for more public participation with that. At Monday night's meeting, Stanley Dukas cited some information that he had found online. Some group compiled some data, and they ranked Vermont cities and towns from safest, top 10 safest, and top 3 most dangerous. And I haven't had a chance to review that, but the alarming thing for Stanley and for the rest of us was St. Albans was #1 most dangerous. And I don't know what exact data was used to give that list, but we've decided, I think, in the interim, we'd like to reactivate the police advisory board, get more people involved, see what kind of grassroots ideas can be shaken out from a good, solid committee meeting on a regular basis. So if anybody from the public would like to join the police advisory board, please reach out to the town manager. We'd take any participation we could get.
How's the city doing with all the mini boards? Are you getting enough people? Marty, does it get ever tougher to get people to just kind of?
It is. It's always a challenge. But I think right now we have maybe an alternate position available on the DRB, but I believe that's fully staffed. We've got Design Advisory Board, we've got a Planning Commission, we've got Development Review Board, we've got a Parks Commission, we've got the Downtown Board. But I believe if there's anything, there's just alternates positions available. We're pretty good as far as that goes. The challenge is the attendance, getting a quorum. Just people have obviously other things going on in their life and stuff. But DRB is probably one of the more active boards just because that's, if you want to know what's going on, it's the former zoning that's been split off. But DAB is an advisory board, so they would make a recommendation to the DRB, and then DRB would act upon that. And then the Planning Commission is strictly just the planning, trying to rewrite the city plan and stuff. So,
Federal Street Extension Project, I'm sorry if I'm using the old name for that. It's the name that still comes right to my mind. Will we see any visible progress on that this year?
The progress you will see, the next step is probably sidewalk reconstruction on Federal, curbs, and putting sidewalks on the west side of Federal. And we we had our first meeting on that about 2 weeks ago. We're looking at the cost to do the infrastructure there as well. Water, sewer. We extended a new water line when we did Lake Street over to Kingman. And so there's a new water line there. We would just need to connect onto that to run it to Lower Newton. And if we did that, we would probably at the same time take the concrete out and then put new base in, which is what we did on Fairfield Street. And if you look, last year we paved Lake Street. If you drive down Lake Street, you've got cracks in the road already from where the concrete is shifted. You go up Fairfield Street, that's been, I think, going on 4 years. And knock on wood, there's not a...
Holding together pretty well.
Yeah, it's in very good shape.
Boy, is it just me, roads this winter? I do a lot of driving to the tune of about 30,000 miles a year. a lot of driving, but boy, roads just seem like they really got beat up this winter. Is that just me?
No, I think you're
I mean, just up and
spot
down
on.
temps obviously factor in.
That's the
but-
challenge, yeah. You know, in that was our challenge in the winter. You know, you'd get a snowstorm and then it would warm up and then you'd have a melt off.
Yeah.
Well, your lowest point is your sidewalks,
Yeah.
and you've got banks on both sides of them. Well, people are saying your sidewalks are icy. Well, because as soon as it warmed up, it froze the next night. And but when that happens on a road and that water gets underneath the pavement and gets in the cracks and everything and then freezes, it expands and it's been a challenge. We've had guys probably for the last month every Friday, they go out with the coal patch and do
Really?
potholes and So,
Yeah, I've heard just a few, you probably have too, just a few horror stories about cars just hitting potholes in the area and just, $1,000, $2,000 damage and insurance not eager to pick it up and stuff. But
right.
yeah, it's been a tough winter.
My heart goes out to the folks that live on the top side of French Hill.
Yeah.
Fred Lake beyond. They are driving through some of the worst road conditions that I've seen in Vermont on a paved surface.
Really?
And a part of that issue is, you look at the asphalt and it's 12 to 18 inches deep.
Right.
And the base might have been designed for 6 to 8 if it was designed for anything at all. So there's been talks at the select board level of, looking at what it would take to renovate and fix that really dangerous portion of road where we have, you look at it, our DPW crew's done a good job of filling it with rock fines and covering it with chloride to keep it hard, but the plows and traffic take it up on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, and that's the thing. These plow drivers are driving the same roads.
Right.
It's not like they wanna navigate the potholes, but these guys are driving a 1 ton or up to a 7 ton truck with a blade and a wing on it, and it's no fun for those guys getting bounced around either. So
Have you had to jump into anything like that? I mean, with PW?
I usually, when our big storms, I'll be out
right?
plowing. I'll typically
Really?
do. I know my limitations, so I try not to jump in one with a wing on it.
Yeah.
But I'll try to do the dead ends
Really?
and just stay on it with the guys. If they're moving snow on Main Street, I'll be in the residence, and we'll usually have we have routes. So you've got like the eastern side, you've got up downs and crossovers, and then you've got dead ends. And on the west side, you've got the west side, and so we'll have one driver dedicated to a route, so he knows that route. He knows what obstacles there are out there and stuff.
How many miles of city roads, Marty? Have you got that figure in
We
there?
have got about 30 miles of road
Really?
and about 50 miles of sidewalks.
Really?
And the roads, keep in mind, when you say 30 miles of roads, you're going 30 miles one way and 30 miles back. So,
Good point.
it's, and then
So kind of double that. Really.
and the challenge is whether for a city or town or any other community, when you get a half an inch of snow, you've got to go out and do the entire route.
Yeah.
You've got to, whereas in your driveway, if you get a half an inch, okay, you can
Let
leave
it go,
and-
maybe.
but in a municipality, you can't do that. So whether you get a half an inch, we joked at the last storm, and as it turned out, the joke was on us because it was a heavy wet snow. But
That was a
when
tough storm.
when they were saying that it was going to be 4 or 5 inches, well, that's nothing for us. We can go out and hit that.
I measured a foot at my house. I don't know what you guys.
Yeah,
looked
yeah.
like
It's
pretty much a
and
foot of snow.
and that's the challenge on Main Street. You compound that with the sidewalk, and then you're hauling that away, and it's tough on the equipment. And we were lucky; we didn't have. We had a couple sanders, but these guys, Brendan touched on it earlier. These guys are a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
If something breaks down, they pull it in the shop and they repair it and get back out on the road. And it's not in 70-degree weather either. It's tough conditions. So. They are certainly the unsung heroes of
Well, they're
communities.
such a great group. I mean, our guys, they hear a rattling and that's, it must be this or that, and they've got it fixed usually within an hour or two. And a piece of equipment's back in service.
And that's what we've done this year, as opposed, I think, in the past years it hasn't. But each driver is assigned a truck. So he knows if he's sitting in that truck for 12 hours and it starts making a funny noise, he knows it. Whereas somebody else, if you're jumping from truck to truck and everything, it makes it a little more difficult. But again, the taxpayers have been good to us. We've got good equipment, and we've been able to rotate it through and stuff. So we've been fortunate in that respect. So
Brendan, I just walked. I love walking. Do a lot of walking, and again, the Bay Park. I think you guys did a great job on the walking paths here. And I walked out on the dock the other day, but you guys are going to give the dock, or that's getting some discussion about maybe making the St. Albans Bay dock just kind of a friendlier kind of place to
Beautify it a
walk
little
out
bit.
to.
Yeah, so Jessica Frost attended an
And did she
AARP
retain? Is she still chair of the Town Parks Commission?
met
She'll-
this morning.
Okay.
We're talking about a slew of issues. We've decided on a set list of priorities that we'd like to recommend to the board to take up, park and rec related, but that dock will definitely be on the list. The thought is, and I really give all the credit to Alan Mash Chair, the thought is take the areas that are maybe settling in, fix them as best we can, overlay it, in certain areas. And then Alan's actually found a line striping or seal coating vendor that can do colored seal coat.
Really?
So his thought was, why don't we have a red path up the middle into the L and paint the rest of it green, and then do cement planters and some nice park benches.
Some benches, stuff like that.
Let people fish and have a place to sit. And then I had one resident say, make sure you put some trash cans in there because, people throw their trash right off the edge of the pier. Last year the board decided that due to some ADA deficiencies that we would no longer have intermittent slips. We since then have purchased a new to us fire boat, and we've been really lucky, and we appreciate that the St. Albans Marina has given us a slip to use for the time being
really?
and into the
That's good.
future. It works out great for everybody. The boat, if you drove by last fall, you saw that it's docked pointed out, and it's towards the end of one of their rows of slips, and we aren't charged for it. And if the guys need to run on, hop on, and fly, that's what they do. We're excited to put that to use this summer. Hope we don't have to use it for any rescues, but if we do, it's there.
Right.
One issue in the Bay Park that is seeing some attention finally, even though we've earmarked 6 figures worth of funds for a couple of years now, is the stone house.
The bathhouse, the
Yeah.
CCV bathhouse, historic bathhouse.
It took a long time for us to find a vendor that was capable of removing the existing doors and windows and doing the required stripping and then replacing. I think we're powder coating the windows, and we actually received a grant from the State Historical Board for $20,000 to help cover
Great.
the replacement of the doors. So right now, if you go by, there's a lot of windows missing, the doors probably. We've also applied for a grant that we're somewhat confident we might get something out of, maybe, to do some further renovations. We have a farmer's market that Alan Master's
I was
done.
going to say farmer's market will be back, I trust.
Right, yeah, and he's working with his vendors. We've got people lined up, and when it rains, they move into the stone house, and it's kind of difficult when you have very deficient lighting and electric supplies.
The bathrooms aren't the best bathrooms I've ever come across.
So the thought was, even if we don't get a grant, let's put some money into the lighting and the outlets as much as possible. Maybe upgrade the power supply. I think there was an estimate floating around for $13,000. We received a large $100-something thousand donation from J.L. Davis when Walmart was built. It was a community donation. It's been earmarked for the stone house. We're just trying to do it over time as responsibly as possible. A lot of times if you bite off more than you might want to chew, especially with an historical building, the costs get absorbed in it. So we're working on it. Alan Maschere is, that's been his baby, the doors, windows, and looking at the roof and what needs to be done to get it watertight, and we'll go from there. But
And again, we will see work on that this summer. I mean, you're looking at some of that work happening this summer.
we are hoping to have the doors and windows back by, and I haven't gotten an update on this in a couple of weeks, but hopefully for Memorial Day weekend.
Right.
The electrical work I can't speak to. I think we're going to hold out to see if we do receive any grant funding for it, but the board kind of had a little bit of consensus the last time we spoke about it together that even if we didn't receive a grant, that electrical upgrade would be something that we would look at.
I would think Efficiency Vermont would probably have something too.
Yeah,
We should look into that. That's a good idea. See collaboration at work,
There
right?
you go.
That would be a great spot though for wedding venues and stuff,
Well, like-
right on the lake
It's
there.
great, it's a beautiful
Well,
spot.
like-
Obviously, water quality, unfortunately,
Right.
comes into play usually later in the summer, but it's a beautiful, I
Right.
love the bay.
Like
It's a
State
great spot.
Representative Casey Toof and his wife Ashley were married in the bay.
Oh, is
I
that,
mean,
is that right?
you know, there's my fiance and I had kicked around the idea, but the building's just too deficient at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
We get married 1st of June, and we're going up to Newport for that. You know, east side, up on
Yeah.
Lake Memphrey,
Yeah, the
Magog,
landing.
family-owned
Down there
business.
about a month ago. Speaking of Newport, I've got a camp out in the Kingdom I wander out to once in a while, but go right through Newport. But city did a beautiful job on the Lake Memphrey Magog
Yeah.
waterfront.
Yeah.
Did a really nice job with that.
Yeah, no
Unfortunately, they
question.
lost their
That's a terrific
excursion
asset.
boat. Maybe at some point in the future, wouldn't that be great to have a boat pull into St. Albans Bay?
Right.
Be kind of cool. Newport had it going for a couple of years, and went under again.
We
But
we
got out there a few times. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, we talked again
you've
when I was
you've talked
mayor.
about it,
We
right?
I met with the mayor of Phillipsburg
Yeah, I was
and,
going to say, I remember a Phillipsburg Connection.
and Venice. There was actually Mr. Charbonneau from Venice who was looking. They wanted to bring a boat and travel into St. Albans and into Burlington and stuff. And I think at the time it was their challenge was the border crossing
Yeah.
was the hold up at that point. But
Yeah.
Venice has built up quite a lot since
I
then
haven't,
and
I haven't
stuff.
been to Venice in a number of years.
Yeah, yeah, they've got some condos right on the
Yeah.
lakefront and stuff, and
Huh.
so definitely potential. Yeah,
Yeah. And again, we'll see what happens with the PW site, which you touched on before. So,
Well, we're looking for some public input. You know, when we do pick a day and time for us to meet to talk about it, I'd like to have it be a special meeting.
Yeah.
You know, remove the rest of our normal
Dedicated to
agenda.
that.
Yes, and you know we have some board members that have some time constraints, but we'll make that happen, and we'll make sure the public's more than aware of it.
yeah.
your grandfather's gonna wonder where his help went when you're talking about these meetings all day.
I tell you, you know, we have a really nice part-time woman, Lisa Pera, that works with us. She comes in whenever I need some time, and she's been usually what we put in for 6 months with her, she's put in the last 2 weeks, and I don't mind it at all.
Right.
So
Right.
you know how it is though. For the first couple of weeks,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you just have to live it, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having a blast. Our staff's excellent. Working with people like Marty is refreshing. You know, I come from a desk job that I might not talk to someone for 8 hours at a time. You know, given the time of year, a little busier in the summer, but it's been a real pleasure getting to know more people and talking about visions and what we might be able to accomplish for a collective community.
So you think you might inspire some more younger people? I mean, everybody's always talking about just trying so hard to get more younger,
Well, it's
new
happening.
blood, young blood.
With us, I was talking with Carrie.
Down to about 2 minutes, you guys.
I was talking with Carrie, the town manager, today. We've already kind of started to shift our boards to a younger demographic.
And you said some more women, more females.
Well, we have Casey Toof is now on the Planning Commission.
really?
When I first got appointed to the Planning Commission, I was appointed along with Al Vogel. So it was Al Vogel and I. Sam Smith was the chair. Brent Brigham was the vice chair, and a gentleman named Grant Henderson was secretary. Grant is probably 45. He works at Milan. He's a certifiable genius, PhD. He's the chair now. Brent Brigham's still there to lend some wisdom as the vice chair. We have Jack Nickel, who is a Chittenden County relocatee. He's there, providing some feedback from what he's seen in different communities. We have Erin Creeley, who actually took the remainder of my term last December and was just reappointed on Monday. She's an MBA, really young, energetic, right vision for the community. We're moving right along. And then if you look at the DRB, we have 2 women under the age of 40 that are on now, and we just appointed a gentleman. I would ballpark him at between 35 and 45. Jonathan Giroux, he's going to be an alternate for now. He also got appointed to the Police Advisory Board. And we're looking for people of all walks of life to come represent different demographics at the local level. It doesn't have to be a young person. We don't mind seeing it because at some point our generations will have to take over. But it's helpful to have a guy, I sit between Stan Dukas and Bruce Cheeseman, and they've been around for a while. So we've done pretty well with collaborating, and they lend me wisdom, and I bring new ideas, and they sift through them, and it's
Very
working
good.
very well.
Marty, you want a very quick last word? You're good.
No, we're good. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, well, thanks. I got to think you're pretty happy to see, even with some snow today, happy to see April roll around and winter
I
being
would say
largely behind you.
in my
behind
next
us.
life, I might be a weatherman because it's the
what
only
I-
job.
that's what I
They
do.
don't ever get it right, but we listen to them the next day.
They don't apologize too much when they get it wrong.
and you listen
I
to
love
them the
weather.
next day and say, okay, now I'm gonna. They're gonna get it today.
You tell me
love
to go
weather.
back to school for meteorology.
Right. Thanks very much to Marty Manahan, the city's Director of Business Development and Operations, and the city's Public Works Director, and Brendan Deso, the new chair of the St. Albans Town Select Board. Thanks a lot, folks. I appreciate the
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks to my man, Zach, for doing all the hard work out there. And thanks for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. See ya.